Epictetus believed that happiness and inner peace are entirely within our power. But it may not seem that way, especially when we consider all the suffering in the world. People get sick and pass away, heartbreak and betrayal shake our foundations, and reckless politicians lead nations to war. How could we possibly remain happy and peaceful when confronted with so much adversity and uncertainty? The Stoic philosopher Epictetus offers a compelling answer. His philosophy is not a soothing salve, but a piercing sword that cuts straight to the truth. His words are not meant to comfort, but to transform, offering a radical reconfiguration of how we see and interact with the world. He was a man who knew suffering intimately. He was born a slave, endured hardship, and yet achieved an unshakable tranquility. He teaches us that the path to inner peace is not about avoiding suffering, but about mastering the way we respond to it. In this video, we will explore the teachings of Epictetus, uncovering the true cause of human suffering and the Stoic path to an unbreakable mind. Now, let's dive in. The slave philosopher. Epictetus's life is a story of transformation. Born into slavery in Hierapolis, a city in present-day Turkey around 50 AD, he was owned by a wealthy Roman official who allowed him to study philosophy. This was a rare opportunity, and Epictetus seized it with both hands. Under the mentorship of the Stoic philosopher Musonius Rufus, he developed a philosophy that would later shake the world. Despite gaining his freedom, his troubles did not end. Emperor Domitian expelled all philosophers from Rome, forcing Epictetus into exile. But instead of seeing this as a misfortune, Epictetus embraced it as part of fate's grand design. He settled in Nicopolis, where he founded a philosophy school, attracting students from all corners of the Roman world. Unlike many philosophers of his time, Epictetus did not write his teachings down. Instead, his student Arrian recorded them in works known as the Discourses and the Enchiridion, both of which remain essential Stoic texts to this day. These texts emphasize the central Stoic idea that external events are beyond our control, but our responses to them are entirely up to us. Epictetus believed that philosophy was not a subject for idle discussion. It was meant to be lived. He taught that true freedom is not found in wealth, status, or comfort, but in the ability to control one's own mind. And this brings us to one of his most profound insights, the real source of our suffering. The root of suffering, desire and aversion. Epictetus argued that suffering does not stem from external events, but from our responses to them. A financial loss, for example, does not inherently cause distress. What makes it painful is our attachment to wealth and our belief that financial security is essential to happiness. Likewise, a rude stranger does not truly offend us. It is our expectation that people should always be polite that leads to frustration. To illustrate this, consider a simple scenario. A spider appears in your room. The spider itself is neutral. It neither harbors malicious intent nor possesses inherent danger. However, if you fear spiders, your mind transforms this encounter into a crisis. Your pulse quickens, panic sets in, and you feel an overwhelming aversion. Yet, another person might see the same spider and remain unbothered, perhaps even fascinated. This contrast highlights a core Stoic insight. It is not external occurrences that disturb us, but rather our interpretations of them. Epictetus identified two dominant forces that dictate our emotional well-being: desire and aversion. We experience distress when we long for things beyond our control, and we suffer when we fear things we cannot prevent. If we crave wealth, we are plagued by financial insecurity. If we resist aging, every gray hair and wrinkle becomes a source of dread. This cycle of suffering is self-imposed. But what if we redirected these forces? What if we desired only what is within our control and feared only our own moral failings? Epictetus teaches that this fundamental shift is the cornerstone of true inner peace. Imagine applying this perspective in daily life. When faced with financial difficulties, instead of lamenting lost income, you could recognize that money is transient and focus on personal resilience. When encountering rudeness, rather than reacting with anger, you could acknowledge that others' behavior is beyond your jurisdiction and your peace remains in your hands. This mindset fosters a profound sense of liberation, one that allows us to navigate life's turbulence with equanimity. The application of Stoic philosophy extends to all aspects of life. Consider relationships. Many people suffer because they desire control over their loved ones' actions, affections, or longevity. But people are autonomous beings. Their choices are their own. Accepting this reality relieves us from unnecessary heartache. Similarly, in professional pursuits, frustration often arises from our longing for recognition, promotions, or external validation. Yet, these factors remain outside our sphere of influence. By focusing on what we can control, our efforts, ethics, and personal growth, we achieve a stability unshaken by external circumstances. Additionally, this Stoic mindset applies to adversity and loss. Many people resist change, but Epictetus reminds us that the nature of life itself is change. Rather than clinging to permanence, we should embrace the impermanence of all things. This does not mean suppressing emotions, but rather learning to view them with wisdom. Grief, anger, and disappointment are all natural reactions, but by understanding that external factors do not control our peace, we can meet these emotions with greater clarity and acceptance. Epictetus also emphasizes the power of perception in overcoming fear. Many fears arise from our tendency to magnify potential threats and catastrophize situations. By breaking these fears down rationally and reframing them through the lens of logic, we can mitigate their hold over us. Fear of failure, for example, is often rooted in our perception of what failure means. But if we redefine failure as a learning opportunity, its power to distress us diminishes. Fear of loss is another example. While losing something dear to us is painful, recognizing that everything is subject to time and change helps us approach loss with greater composure. Ultimately, Epictetus's philosophy offers us a new way of looking at the world. Instead of perceiving external events as the causes of our distress, we realize that our inner judgments create suffering. By adjusting our perspectives and aligning our desires with what is truly within our power, we cultivate an unshakable peace. And in this newfound clarity, we discover the secret to living a life of true freedom, unburdened by unnecessary suffering and fear. The anatomy of suffering, placing our happiness in externals. Desire and aversion are not inherently bad, says Epictetus, but they become destructive when directed at things outside our control. Money, health, social status, these are all subject to fate. To base our happiness on them is to make ourselves slaves to chance, surrendering our emotional well-being to forces beyond our influence. We must ask ourselves, if our peace of mind depends on things beyond our control, how can we ever expect to maintain it? Attach your desire and aversion to wealth, and you will fail to get what you desire and fall into what you want to avoid, he warned. Attach them to health, and you will fall into misfortune. Attach them to public office, honors, your country, friends, children, and, in a word, to anything outside the sphere of choice, and you will suffer. This is where Stoicism takes a radical turn. Even our closest relationships, those we hold most dear, should not dictate our inner state. Of course, we can love our children, our spouses, and our friends. But if we make their continued presence the condition of our happiness, we are setting ourselves up for inevitable suffering. Everything outside ourselves is temporary and beyond our control. Only our own minds belong to us. Expanding on this, Epictetus reminds us that external conditions are transient, and attachment to them only fosters distress. When we allow our emotions to be dictated by things outside our control, we become vulnerable to fate's unpredictable whims. To truly cultivate resilience, we must anchor our well-being in something steadfast, our own rational judgment and virtue. This does not mean we should detach ourselves from human connection, but rather we should reframe our understanding of what brings true fulfillment. Instead of finding security in relationships or possessions, we should seek it within ourselves, recognizing that genuine peace is a product of internal stability. Furthermore, Epictetus warns against the illusion of permanence. People and circumstances change, sometimes unexpectedly. If our happiness hinges on a stable external world, we set ourselves up for disappointment. This is why Stoicism teaches us to find joy in the present moment and accept reality as it unfolds. Instead of lamenting what is lost, we should cherish what we have while we have it, knowing that impermanence is a natural part of life. To expect constancy in a world defined by flux is to invite perpetual suffering. By redirecting our desires toward what is within our control, our character, our actions, and our perceptions, we free ourselves from unnecessary suffering. This practice not only leads to inner peace, but also enables us to engage with the world in a more compassionate and effective manner. We can love more deeply without fear, act with integrity without expectation, and find fulfillment in the stability of our own minds, rather than the instability of external circumstances. Additionally, cultivating a reflective practice, such as daily journaling or meditative contemplation, can help reinforce our awareness of what is truly within our power. The more we remind ourselves of these principles, the more deeply they become ingrained in our minds, guiding us toward a more balanced and resilient life. Ultimately, Epictetus teaches that true freedom is not about controlling the world, but about mastering ourselves. By shifting our focus inward, we can cultivate a peace that is unwavering, regardless of life's inevitable challenges. In this way, we move from being at the mercy of fate to becoming the architects of our own tranquility, firmly rooted in wisdom and virtue, equipped to face the world with clarity, strength, and unwavering composure. The Stoic reframing: seeing things as they are. If suffering comes from our judgments rather than external events, the solution is simple: change our judgments. Instead of wishing the world were different, we should align our desires with reality and learn to flow with the natural course of life rather than resisting it. By embracing this shift, we develop resilience in the face of life's inevitable uncertainties and arm ourselves with the clarity needed to navigate a turbulent world. Understanding that we do not control external circumstances, but only our response to them, allows us to cultivate inner peace that remains unaffected by outside forces. Let's take an example. You are driving to work when someone cuts you off in traffic. Your immediate reaction is anger. You think, this person should not have done that. But what does this thought achieve? It does not change the event. It only makes you miserable and reactive, clouding your mind with frustration and resentment. This emotional turmoil, however, serves no purpose beyond adding to your own distress and reinforcing your dependency on external circumstances. If we allow such minor inconveniences to dictate our emotions, we are surrendering control over our state of mind to factors beyond our influence. Now consider a Stoic perspective. Instead of raging against the driver, you remind yourself, people make mistakes. Traffic is chaotic by nature. This is nothing unusual. By reframing the event, you strip it of its power over you. Instead of becoming upset, you remain calm, understanding that another person's actions do not have to dictate your emotional state. This detachment allows you to stay composed and focused on what is within your control, your reaction, and your state of mind. By continuously applying this mindset, you develop an unshakable composure that serves you in all areas of life. This practice extends to every aspect of life. If a cherished cup breaks, remind yourself, cups are fragile. They were always destined to break. If a loved one leaves or passes away, remind yourself, all humans are mortal. This was always a possibility. This does not mean we stop caring, but rather that we stop clinging. True peace comes from accepting reality as it is, not as we wish it to be. The more we internalize this perspective, the less we suffer when inevitable changes occur. Acceptance rather than resistance becomes our greatest ally in maintaining emotional balance. To take this a step further, we should actively cultivate this mindset before challenges arise. By anticipating difficulties and reminding ourselves that life is unpredictable, we can build a psychological buffer against distress. If we accept in advance that people will sometimes be rude, that traffic will be frustrating, and that material possessions are temporary, we reduce our vulnerability to emotional turbulence. This mental preparation creates a strong foundation for maintaining composure in challenging situations and prevents small setbacks from escalating into larger frustrations. A premeditated acceptance of life's difficulties strengthens our emotional endurance and enables us to navigate adversity with clarity. Moreover, adopting this perspective can enhance our relationships. Instead of holding unrealistic expectations for others, we recognize that people, like us, are flawed and prone to mistakes. This awareness fosters compassion rather than resentment, patience rather than irritation. It allows us to navigate the world with a sense of balance, ensuring that we do not hand over our inner peace to external circumstances. We begin to see each interaction as an opportunity to practice patience and understanding rather than as a test of our emotional endurance. Additionally, this approach enables us to reframe setbacks as opportunities for growth. When faced with an obstacle, instead of perceiving it as a personal injustice, we can view it as a chance to develop resilience and adaptability. By embracing challenges rather than resisting them, we turn adversity into a powerful teacher that strengthens our character. Every moment of hardship becomes an opportunity to test and refine our philosophical outlook, reinforcing our capacity for endurance and self-mastery. Ultimately, true peace does not come from trying to control the outside world, but from gaining mastery over our inner responses. The more we train ourselves to see things as they are, free from personal bias or unrealistic expectations, the closer we come to a life of tranquility and unshakable resilience. By practicing these principles daily, we can cultivate an unshakable serenity that remains unaffected by the chaos of the external world. This inner equanimity, once achieved, is a fortress against turmoil, a sanctuary that no external force can disturb. The power of voluntary discomfort, training the mind for hardship. One of the most practical exercises Epictetus and other Stoics recommended was voluntary discomfort. This practice involves deliberately placing oneself in mildly uncomfortable situations to strengthen resilience and adaptability. By willingly enduring small hardships, we prepare ourselves for the greater challenges that life may unexpectedly throw our way. The goal was not self-punishment, but rather the realization that comfort is not a requirement for happiness. By occasionally depriving ourselves of luxury, we break the cycle of dependency on external pleasures and cultivate an appreciation for what we have. Modern applications of this practice can take many forms. One could take a cold shower, fast intermittently, or abstain from social media for a period of time. These small acts of discomfort remind us that we are not fragile beings, and that much of what we perceive as unbearable is, in reality, well within our capacity to endure. Through voluntary discomfort, we train our minds to face adversity with greater equanimity. We learn that we can function without excess, and that happiness is not contingent upon external circumstances. When true hardship does arise, we will not be caught off guard, for we will have already fortified our minds against suffering. By integrating this practice into our daily lives, we develop the ability to remain composed, no matter the circumstances. Instead of fearing discomfort, we embrace it as an opportunity for growth, reinforcing the Stoic ideal that true peace comes not from avoiding pain, but from mastering our response to it. The practice of negative visualization, preparing for life's uncertainties. Another key Stoic exercise closely related to voluntary discomfort is negative visualization, or premeditatio malorum. This practice involves contemplating potential hardships in advance to mentally prepare for them. Unlike excessive worry, which leads to anxiety, this exercise fosters resilience by allowing us to confront the worst-case scenario before it happens. By doing so, we build emotional fortitude and develop the ability to handle difficulties with clarity and acceptance. For example, before embarking on an important business venture, one might consider all the possible ways it could fail: economic downturns, unexpected competition, or personal setbacks. By visualizing these difficulties ahead of time, we train our minds to accept them should they come to pass. This preparation ensures that we do not react with shock or despair, but with composure and strategy. This method also reduces the fear of uncertainty, as it shifts our mindset from avoidance to preparedness. Negative visualization can also enhance gratitude. By contemplating what life would be like without the things we cherish, our health, relationships, or even simple daily comforts, we develop a greater appreciation for them in the present. Instead of taking things for granted, we cherish them more deeply, knowing that they are not guaranteed. This reflection not only makes us more grateful, but also more mindful of our everyday experiences, transforming mundane moments into sources of joy and appreciation. To take this further, one might apply negative visualization to relationships. Instead of assuming that a loved one will always be around, we remind ourselves of the impermanence of life. This realization encourages us to express our affection more often, to resolve conflicts faster, and to be fully present when spending time with those we care about. When we recognize the fragile nature of existence, we cease to take meaningful connections for granted. Incorporating negative visualization into daily life can be as simple as setting aside a few minutes each morning to reflect on potential challenges and how we might respond. This exercise helps cultivate mental toughness, ensuring that we are never caught unprepared when adversity inevitably arrives. By embracing the idea that difficulties will come, we reduce the suffering caused by resistance to reality, making us more adaptable and emotionally resilient. With consistent practice, this mindset allows us to navigate life's ups and downs with an unshakable sense of peace. Escaping the trap of online outrage, a Stoic approach to politics and social media. In today's world, we are constantly bombarded with divisive politics, sensationalized world news, and emotionally charged social media posts designed to provoke a reaction. If we allow ourselves to be consumed by every controversial headline or every heated debate, we surrender control over our inner state. Epictetus reminds us that peace is found not in controlling the world, but in controlling how we respond to it. The illusion of control in online debates. Scrolling through social media, we often see posts that trigger frustration or outrage, political arguments, viral scandals, and reactionary news designed to provoke strong emotional responses. We might feel compelled to comment, to correct others, or to prove our point. But what does this achieve? Have we changed the world? Have we changed the mind of a stranger on the internet? Most likely not. Instead, we have only disturbed our own tranquility, drained our mental energy, and contributed to the cycle of outrage that fuels online discourse. The internet thrives on engagement, and the easiest way to generate it is through controversy. Algorithms prioritize inflammatory content because it keeps users scrolling, commenting, and arguing. This endless cycle traps people in reactionary loops, making them emotionally invested in battles they can never win. Instead of gaining wisdom or clarity, they become exhausted, frustrated, and resentful. Engaging in these debates does not lead to deeper understanding. It leads to distraction and mental turmoil. Epictetus would remind us that engaging in every debate is not our duty. We are not responsible for changing the opinions of the world, nor should we allow others' opinions to dictate our emotions. Instead of being lured into reactionary responses, we should pause and ask, is this within my control? Does this serve my peace of mind? If the answer is no, disengagement is the wiser choice. We must remember that our energy is finite, and choosing where to direct it is one of the most important decisions we make daily. One powerful technique for avoiding the pull of online debates is practicing mental distancing. When you feel the urge to respond to a provocative post, take a step back and view the situation as an observer rather than a participant. Imagine you are watching a performance on a stage. Does engaging truly benefit you, or are you simply getting pulled into someone else's script? By cultivating this habit, we can train ourselves to detach from unnecessary conflict and reserve our mental strength for pursuits that genuinely enrich our lives. Another effective practice is deliberate disengagement. This means consciously reducing the time we spend on social media, avoiding comment sections filled with outrage, and prioritizing real-world interactions over online debates. If a discussion is truly worth having, it is best done in person, where genuine understanding is more likely to occur. Instead of trying to win arguments in a virtual space, we should focus on refining our own thoughts, actions, and character. In doing so, we follow the Stoic path, not seeking to control the opinions of others, but mastering our own reactions. The media's business model, selling emotion. It is important to recognize that much of today's media is not designed to inform, it is designed to enrage. Anger and fear generate engagement, keeping people emotionally hooked. Outrage spreads faster than calm discourse, and media outlets capitalize on this by presenting events in ways that stir the strongest reactions. Headlines are crafted to provoke, images are selected to intensify emotions, and stories are framed in ways that encourage division rather than understanding. The business model of modern media thrives on constant controversy, making it all too easy for individuals to fall into a cycle of reactionary thinking, where emotions dictate responses rather than reason. As Stoics, we must practice discernment. Instead of absorbing every piece of bad news and allowing it to dictate our emotional state, we should consume information mindfully. This means questioning sources, recognizing biases, and understanding that much of what we see is designed to elicit a reaction rather than provide balanced insight. Ask yourself, is this something I can control? Is my outrage solving anything? If the answer is no, then letting go is the rational choice. One way to exercise this discipline is to limit our exposure to negative media. We do not need to be constantly plugged into every political scandal, economic downturn, or social outrage. Instead, we can set boundaries, checking the news once a day, curating what we consume, and focusing on information that is actionable rather than inflammatory. By practicing digital restraint, we reclaim our mental clarity and avoid being swept up in the endless storm of fear and indignation that media companies profit from. Moreover, when encountering emotionally charged news, we can train ourselves to pause before reacting. Instead of immediately engaging or sharing reactionary opinions, we should take a step back and reflect. What is the true impact of this event on my life? Does my reaction contribute to a solution, or am I merely fueling the cycle of outrage? Developing this level of self-awareness helps us avoid emotional hijacking, where our responses are dictated by sensationalism rather than logic. Ultimately, Stoic wisdom teaches that our peace of mind should never be surrendered to external forces. The media will always attempt to capture our attention, but we have the power to choose how much influence it has over us. By controlling our intake of information, responding with reason instead of emotion, and focusing only on what is within our sphere of influence, we can navigate the modern world without sacrificing our inner tranquility. This does not mean we should be indifferent to the world. Stoicism does not promote passivity, it promotes wisdom. If we want to make a difference, we should direct our energy toward actions within our control. Support causes we believe in, vote with intention, have meaningful conversations with people who are willing to listen, and work on improving our own character. Spending hours arguing online or doom-scrolling through negative headlines does not contribute to a better world. It only erodes our own peace. Instead, we should focus on where we can truly make an impact. Our efforts are best spent on our own growth, on helping those around us, and on leading by example through rational, composed action. One powerful way to maintain inner peace is to practice digital minimalism. This means being selective about what information we consume and how much time we spend online. Setting boundaries, such as limiting social media use, avoiding unnecessary debates, and disengaging from outrage culture, can protect our mental well-being. Another strategy is emotional discipline. When we come across an inflammatory post or headline, we can pause before reacting. We can ask ourselves, is this worth my time? Will my response change anything? If the answer is no, we can let it go and redirect our attention to something that actually matters. The modern world will always offer an abundance of distractions and provocations, but as Epictetus teaches, we do not have to take the bait. True power comes from knowing when to engage and when to walk away. Instead of being swept up in the emotional storms of the internet, we can cultivate a mind that remains calm and focused on what truly matters. In doing so, we reclaim not only our time, but also our peace. The ultimate Stoic lesson, wanting what happens. The final piece of Epictetus's wisdom is also his most profound. Ask not that events should happen as you will, but let your will be that events should happen as they do, and you shall have peace. This is the essence of Stoic acceptance. Instead of fighting against the universe, we align ourselves with it. Instead of resenting our hardships, we see them as necessary parts of our journey. By training ourselves to want only what happens, we eliminate resistance, frustration, and disappointment. We attain a state of serenity that no external force can shake. To truly integrate this principle, we must develop an unwavering trust in the natural order of things. We must practice seeing every event, no matter how painful or unexpected, as an opportunity for growth. The loss of a job, the betrayal of a friend, or even the death of a loved one can all be framed as experiences that shape us, fortify us, and teach us lessons we might never have otherwise learned. Every challenge becomes an opportunity to reinforce our inner strength and deepen our understanding of life's transient nature. But how do we develop this level of acceptance? It requires daily reflection and practice. We must start small. When minor inconveniences occur, like spilling coffee or encountering rude behavior, we should remind ourselves that these events are not inherently bad, but simply part of life's unfolding. The more we train our minds in small moments, the more prepared we will be for larger challenges. We should see setbacks as opportunities to cultivate patience and resilience rather than as sources of irritation. This does not mean we passively accept injustice or allow ourselves to be trampled by life's difficulties. Stoic virtue demands that we act in the world to improve it. However, we must act without attachment to outcomes. We must fight for what is right, but we do not let failure destroy us. We love deeply, but we do not let loss break us. We serve others, but we do not expect reciprocation or validation. In this way, our peace remains untouched by the fluctuations of fortune. To practice this in daily life, we must cultivate awareness of our reactions. When something does not go our way, instead of spiraling into disappointment or anger, we should pause and remind ourselves, this is exactly as it was meant to happen. This acceptance does not imply complacency, but rather an acknowledgement of reality as it is. The more we internalize this mindset, the more we free ourselves from unnecessary suffering. We should remind ourselves that everything happening is part of a larger picture beyond our control, yet within our capacity to embrace. Journaling can serve as a tool for cultivating resilience. Writing down our experiences and reflecting on how we respond to adversity allows us to see patterns in our thinking. It also helps us gain perspective and reinforce the idea that no hardship is insurmountable. Tracking our emotional responses over time can help us recognize growth and progress in how we handle difficulties. Furthermore, practicing gratitude can deepen our ability to accept life as it is. By focusing on what we have rather than what we lack, we shift our mindset from resistance to appreciation. A simple daily practice of listing 3 things we are grateful for can reshape our perception and make us more accepting of life's ebb and flow. In a world of constant change, the only true refuge is a mind that is its own master. And that, according to Epictetus, is the key to unshakable inner peace. To desire only what happens rather than what we wish would happen is to free ourselves from the chains of expectation and step into the vast expanse of tranquility. By continuously refining our understanding, practicing gratitude, and reinforcing this mindset through daily reflection, we can achieve a level of peace that remains unwavering no matter what life presents us with. So, what do you think of Epictetus's teachings? Do they resonate with you? Let me know in the comments.